Progress report 14, Part 2. June 21st. I've added time sequences of increasing complexity to the three-dimensional maze, and Algernon learns them easily. There's no need to motivate him with food or water. He appears to learn for the sake of solving the problem. Success appears to be its own reward. But, as Bert pointed out at the convention, his behavior is erratic. Sometimes after, or even during a run, he will rage, throw himself against the walls of the maze, or curl up and refuse to work at all. Frustration or something deeper. 5:30 p.m. That crazy Faye came in through the fire escape this afternoon with a female white mouse, about half Algernon's size, to keep him company, she said, on these lonely summer nights. She quickly overcame all my objections and convinced me that it would do Algernon good to have companionship. After I assured myself that little Minnie was of sound health and good moral character, I agreed. I was curious to see what he would do when confronted with a female. But once we had put Minnie into Algernon's cage, Faye grabbed my arm and pulled me out of the room. "Where's your sense of romance?" she insisted. She turned on the radio and advanced toward me menacingly. "I'm going to teach you the latest steps." How can you get annoyed at a girl like Faye? At any rate, I'm glad that Algernon is no longer alone. June 23rd. Late last night, the sound of laughter in the hallway and a tapping on my door. It was Faye and a man. "Hi, Charlie," she giggled as she saw me. "Leroy, meet Charlie. He's my across-the-hall neighbor. A wonderful artist. He does sculpture with the living element." Leroy caught hold of her and kept her from bumping into the wall. He looked at me nervously and mumbled a greeting. "Met Leroy at the Stardust Ballroom," she explained. "He's a terrific dancer." She started into her apartment and then pulled him back. "Hey," she giggled. "Why don't we invite Charlie over for a drink and make it a party?" Leroy didn't think it was a good idea. I managed an apology and pulled away. Behind my closed door, I heard them laughing their way into her apartment, and though I tried to read, the pictures kept forcing their way into my mind. A big white bed, white cool sheets, and the two of them in each other's arms. I wanted to phone Alice, but I didn't. Why torment myself? I couldn't even visualize Alice's face. I could picture Faye, dressed or undressed at will, with her crisp blue eyes and her blonde hair braided and coiled around her head like a crown. Faye was clear, but Alice was wrapped in mist. About an hour later, I heard shouting from Faye's apartment, then her scream and the sound of things being thrown. But as I started out of bed to see if she needed help, I heard the door slam, Leroy cursing as he left. Then, a few minutes afterward, I heard a tapping on my living room window. It was open, and Faye slipped in and sat on the ledge, a black silk kimono revealing her lovely legs. "Hi," she whispered. "Got a cigarette?" I handed her one, and she slipped down from the window ledge to the couch. "Phew," she sighed. "I can usually take care of myself, but there's only one type that's so angry it's all you can do to hold them off." "Oh," I said. "You brought him up here to hold him off?" She caught my tone and looked up sharply. "You don't approve?" "Who am I to disapprove? But if you pick up a guy in a public dance hall, you've got to expect advances. He had the right to make a pass at you." She shook her head. "I go to the Stardust Ballroom because I like to dance, and I don't see that because I let a guy bring me home, I've got to go to bed with him. You don't think I went to bed with him, do you?" My image of the two of them in each other's arms popped like soap bubbles. "Now, if you were the guy," she said, "it would be different." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Just what it sounds like. If you ask me, I'd go to bed with you." I tried to keep my composure. "Thanks," I said. "I'll keep that in mind. Can I get you a cup of coffee?" "Charlie, I can't figure you out. Most men like me or not, and I know it right away. But you seem afraid of me. You're not homosexual, are you?" "Hell, not." "I mean, you don't have to hide it from me if you are, because then we could just be good friends. But I'd have to know." "I'm not homosexual. Tonight, when you went into your place with that guy, I wished it was me." She leaned forward and the kimono opened at the neck revealed her bosom. She slipped her arms around me, waiting for me to do something. I knew what was expected of me, and I told myself there was no reason not to. I had the feeling there would be no panic now, not with her. After all, I wasn't the one making the advances, and she was different from any woman I'd ever met before. Perhaps she was right for me at this emotional level. I slipped my arms around her. That's different, she cooed. I was beginning to think you didn't care. I care, I whispered, kissing her throat, but as I did it, I saw the two of us, as if I were a third person standing in the doorway. I was watching a man and woman in each other's arms, but seeing myself that way, from a distance, left me unresponsive. There was no panic, it was true, but there was also no excitement, no desire. Your place or mine? She asked. Wait a minute. What's the matter? Maybe we'd better not. I don't feel well this evening. She looked at me wonderingly. Is there anything else? Anything you want me to do? I don't mind. No, that's not it, I said sharply. I just don't feel well tonight. I was curious about the way she had of getting a man excited, but this was no time to start experimenting. The solution to my problem lay elsewhere. I didn't know what else to say to her. I wished she'd go away, but I didn't want to tell her to go. She was studying me, and then finally she said, Look, do you mind if I spend the night here? Why? She shrugged. I like you. I don't know. Leroy might come back. Lots of reasons. If you don't want me to. She caught me off guard again. I might have found a dozen excuses to get rid of her, but I gave in. Got any gin? She asked. No, I don't drink much. I've got some in my place. I'll bring it over. Before I could stop her, she was out the window, and a few minutes later she returned with a bottle about two-thirds full and a lemon. She took 2 glasses from my kitchen and poured some gin into each. Here, she said, this'll make you feel better. It'll take the starch out of those straight lines. That's what's bugging you. Everything is too neat and straight, and you're all boxed in, like Algernon in his sculpture there. I wasn't going to at first, but I felt so lousy that I figured, why not? It couldn't make things any worse, and it might possibly dull the feeling that I was watching myself through eyes that didn't understand what I was doing. She got me drunk. I remember the first drink and getting into bed and her slipping in beside me with a bottle in her hand. And that was all until this afternoon when I got up with a hangover. She was still asleep, face to the wall, her pillow bunched up under her neck. On the night table beside the ashtray overflowing with crushed butts stood the empty bottle. But the last thing I remembered before the curtain came down was watching myself take the second drink. She stretched and rolled toward me, nude. I moved back and fell out of bed. I grabbed a blanket to wrap around myself. Hi, she yawned. You know what I want to do one of these days? What? Paint you in the nude, like Michelangelo's David. You'd be beautiful. You okay? I nodded, except for a headache. Did I, uh, drink too much last night? She laughed and propped herself up on one elbow. You were loaded, and boy, did you act queer. I don't mean fairyish or anything like that, but strange. What? I said, struggling to work the blanket around so that I could walk. Is that supposed to mean? What did I do? I've seen guys get happy or sad or sleepy or sexy, but I never saw anyone act the way you did. It's a good thing you don't drink often. Oh, my God, I only wish I had a camera. What a short subject you'd have made. Well, for Christ's sake, what did I do? Not what I expected. No sex or anything like that. But you were phenomenal. What an act. The weirdest. You'd be great on the stage. You'd wow them at the palace. You went all confused and silly, as if a grown man starts acting like a kid, talking about how you wanted to go to school and learn to read and write so you could be smart like everyone else. Crazy stuff like that. You were a different person, like they do with method acting, and you kept saying you couldn't play with me because your mother would take away your peanuts and put you in a cage. Peanuts? Yeah, so help me, she laughed, scratching her head. And you kept saying I couldn't have your peanuts. The weirdest. But I tell you, the way you talked, like those dimwits on the street corners who work themselves up by just looking at a girl, a different guy completely. At first, I thought you were just kidding around, but now I think you're compulsive or something. All this neatness and worrying about everything. It didn't upset me, although I would have expected it to. Somehow, getting drunk had momentarily broken down the conscious barriers that kept the old Charlie Gordon hidden deep in my mind. As I suspected all along, he was not really gone. Nothing in our minds is ever really gone. The operation had covered him over with a veneer of education and culture, but emotionally he was there, watching and waiting. What was he waiting for? You okay now? I told her I was fine. She grabbed the blanket I was wrapped in and pulled me back into bed. Before I could stop her, she slipped her arms around me and kissed me. I was scared last night, Charlie. I thought you'd flipped. I've heard about guys who are impotent, how it suddenly gets them and they become maniacs. How come you stayed? She shrugged. Well, you were like a scared little kid. I was sure you wouldn't hurt me, but I thought you might hurt yourself, so I figured I'd hang around. I felt so sorry. Anyway, I kept this handy, just in case. She pulled out a heavy bookend she had wedged between the bed and the wall. I guess you didn't have to use it. She shook her head. Boy, you must have liked peanuts when you were a kid. She got out of bed and started to dress. I lay there for a while watching her. She moved in front of me with no shyness or inhibition. Her breasts were full as she had painted them in that self-portrait. I longed to reach out for her, but I knew it was futile. In spite of the operation, Charlie was still with me. And Charlie was afraid of losing his peanuts. June 24th. Today I went on a strange kind of anti-intellectual binge. If I had dared to, I would have gotten drunk, but after the experience with Faye, I knew it would be dangerous. So instead, I went to Times Square, from movie house to movie house, immersing myself in westerns and horror movies the way I used to. Each time, sitting through the picture, I would find myself whipped with guilt. I'd walk out in the middle of the picture and wander into another one. I told myself I was looking for something in the make-believe screen world that was missing from my new life. Then, in a sudden intuition, right outside the Kino Amusement Center, I knew it wasn't the movies I wanted, but the audiences. I wanted to be with the people around me in the darkness. The walls between people are thin here, and if I listen quietly, I hear what's going on. Greenwich Village is like that too. Not just being close, because I don't feel it in a crowded elevator or on a subway during the rush, but on a hot night when everyone is out walking or sitting in the theater, there's a rustling, and for a moment I brush against someone and sense the connection between the branch and the trunk and the deep root. At such moments, my flesh is thin and tight, and the unbearable hunger to be part of it drives me out to search in the dark corners and blind alleys of the night. Usually, when I'm exhausted from walking, I go back to the apartment and drop off into a deep sleep. But tonight, instead of going up to my own place, I went to the diner. There was a new dishwasher, a boy of about 16, and there was something familiar about him, his movements, the look in his eyes. And then, clearing away the table behind me, he dropped some dishes. They crashed to the floor, shattering and sending bits of white china under the tables. He stood there, dazed and frightened, holding the empty tray in his hand, the whistles and catcalls from the customers, cries of, "Hey, there go the profits, Mazel tov," and, well, he didn't work here very long, which invariably seems to follow the breaking of dishware in a public restaurant, confused him. When the owner came to see what the excitement was about, the boy cowered, threw up his arms as if to ward off a blow. All right, you dope," shouted the man. "Don't just stand there. Get the broom and sweep up that mess. A broom, you idiot. It's in the kitchen. Sweep up all the pieces." When the boy saw that he was not going to be punished, his frightened expression disappeared, and he smiled and hummed as he came back with the broom. A few of the rowdier customers kept up the remarks, amusing themselves at his expense. "Here, Sonny, over here. Here's a nice piece behind you. Come on, do it again. He's not so dumb. It's easier to break 'em than to wash 'em." As the boy's vacant eyes moved across the crowd of amused onlookers, he slowly mirrored their smiles, and finally broke into an uncertain grin at the joke which he did not understand. I felt sick inside as I looked at his dull, vacuous smile, the wide, bright eyes of a child, uncertain but eager to please, and I realized what I had recognized in him. They were laughing at him because he was retarded. And at first I had been amused along with the rest. Suddenly, I was furious at myself and all those who were smirking at him. I wanted to pick up the dishes and throw them. I wanted to smash their laughing faces. I jumped up and shouted, "Shut up! Leave him alone. He can't understand. He can't help what he is. But for God's sake, have some respect. He's a human being." The restaurant grew silent. I cursed myself for losing control and creating a scene, and I tried not to look at the boy as I paid my check and walked out without touching my food. I felt ashamed for both of us. How strange it is that people of honest feelings and sensibility, who would not take advantage of a man born without arms or legs or eyes, how such people think nothing of abusing a man born with low intelligence. It infuriated me to remember that not so long ago I, like this boy who foolishly played the clown, and I had almost forgotten. Only a short time ago, I learned that people laughed at me. Now I can see that unknowingly, I joined them in laughing at myself. That hurts most of all. I have often reread my early progress reports and seen the illiteracy, the childish naivete, the mind of low intelligence peering from a dark room through the keyhole at the dazzling light outside. In my dreams and memories, I've seen Charlie smiling happily and uncertainly at what people around him were saying. Even in my dullness, I knew I was inferior. Other people had something I lacked, something denied me. In my mental blindness, I had believed it was somehow connected with the ability to read and write, and I was sure that if I could get those skills, I would have intelligence too. Even a feeble-minded man wants to be like other men. A child may not know how to feed itself or what to eat, yet it knows hunger. This day was good for me. I've got to stop this childish worrying about myself, my past and my future. Let me give something of myself to others. I've got to use my knowledge and skills to work in the field of increasing human intelligence. Who is better equipped? Who else has lived in both worlds? Tomorrow, I'm going to get in touch with the board of directors at the Wellberg Foundation and ask for permission to do some independent work on the project. If they'll let me, I may be able to help them. I have some ideas. There is so much that can be done with this technique if it is perfected. If I could be made into a genius, what about the more than 5 million mentally retarded in the United States? What about the countless millions all over the world and those yet unborn destined to be retarded? What fantastic levels might be achieved by using this technique on normal people, on geniuses? There are so many doors to open, I am impatient to apply my own knowledge and skills to the problem. I've got to make them all see that this is something important for me to do. I'm sure the foundation will grant me permission. But I can't be alone anymore. I have to tell Alice about it. June 25th. I called Alice today. I was nervous and I must have sounded incoherent, but it was good to hear her voice, and she sounded happy to hear from me. She agreed to see me, and I took a taxi uptown, impatient at the slowness with which we moved. Before I could knock, she opened the door and threw her arms around me. "Charlie, I've been so worried about you. I had horrible visions of you dead in an alleyway or wandering around Skid Row with amnesia. Why didn't you let us know you were all right? You could have done that." "Don't scold me. I had to be alone for a while to answer some questions." "Come in the kitchen. I'll make some coffee. What have you been doing?" "Days. I've been thinking, reading, and writing. And nights, wandering in search of myself. And I've discovered that Charlie is watching me." "Don't talk like that," she shuddered. "This business about being watched isn't real. You've built it up in your mind." "I can't help feeling that I'm not me. I've usurped his place and locked him out the way they locked me out of the bakery. What I mean to say is that Charlie Gordon exists in the past, and the past is real. You can't put up a new building on a site until you destroy the old one, and the old Charlie can't be destroyed. He exists, At first, I was searching for him. I went to see my father. All I wanted to do was prove that Charlie existed as a person in the past so that I could justify my own existence. I was insulted when Niemer said he created me, but I've discovered that not only did Charlie exist in the past, he exists now, in me and around me. He's been coming between us all along. I thought my intelligence created the barrier, my pompous, foolish pride, the feeling we had nothing in common because I had gone beyond you. You put that idea into my head. But that's not it. It's Charlie, the little boy who's afraid of women because of things his mother did to him. Don't you see? All these months I've been growing up intellectually. I've still had the emotional wiring of the childlike Charlie. And every time I came close to you or thought about making love to you, there was a short circuit. I was excited, and my voice pounded at her until she began to quiver. Her face became flushed. "Charlie," she whispered, "can't I do anything? Can't I help?" "I think I've changed during these weeks away from the lab," I said. "I couldn't see how to do it at first, but tonight, while I was wandering around the city, it came to me. The foolish thing was trying to solve the problem all by myself. But the deeper I get tangled up in this mass of dreams and memories, the more I realize that emotional problems can't be solved as intellectual problems are. That's what I discovered about myself last night. I told myself I was wandering around like a lost soul, and then I saw I was lost. Somehow, I've become separated emotionally from everyone and everything. And what I was really searching for out there in the dark streets, the last damn place I could ever find it, was a way to make myself a part of people again emotionally, while still retaining my freedom intellectually. I've got to grow up. For me, it means everything." I talked on, spewing out of myself every doubt and fear that bubbled to the surface. She was my sounding board, and she sat there hypnotized. I felt myself grow warm, feverish, until I thought my body was on fire. I was burning out the infection in front of someone I cared about, and that made all the difference. But it was too much for her. What had started as trembling became tears. The picture over the couch caught my eye, the cringing, red-cheeked maiden, and I wondered what Alice was feeling just then. I knew she would give herself to me, and I wanted her. But what about Charlie? Charlie might not interfere if I wanted to make love to Faye. He would probably just stand in the doorway and watch. But the moment I came close to Alice, he panicked. Why was he afraid to let me love Alice? She sat on the couch looking at me, waiting to see what I would do. And what could I do? I wanted to take her in my arms, and as I began to think of it, the warning came. "Are you all right, Charlie? You're so pale." I sat down on the couch beside her. "Just a little dizzy. It'll pass." But I knew it would only get worse as long as Charlie felt there was danger I'd make love to her. And then I got the idea. It disgusted me at first, but suddenly I realized the only way to overcome this paralysis was to outwit him. If for some reason Charlie was afraid of Alice but not Faye, then I would turn out the lights and pretend I was making love to Faye. He would never know the difference. It was wrong, disgusting, but if it worked, it would break Charlie's strangle on my emotions. I would know afterward that I loved Alice and that this was the only way. "I'm all right now. Let's sit in the dark for a while," I said, turning off the lights and waiting to collect myself. It wasn't going to be easy. I had to convince myself, visualize Faye, hypnotize myself into believing that the woman sitting beside me was Faye. And even if he separated himself from me to watch from outside my body, it would do him no good because the room would be dark. I waited for some sign that he suspected, the warning symptoms of panic, but nothing. I felt alert and calm. I put my arm around her. "Charlie, Don't talk," I snapped, and she shrank from me. "Please," I reassured her. Don't say anything. Just let me hold you quietly in the dark." I brought her close to me, and there, under the darkness of my closed lids, I conjured up the picture of Faye, with her long blonde hair and fair skin. Faye, as I had seen her last beside me. I kissed Faye's hair, Faye's throat, and finally came to rest upon Faye's lips. I felt Faye's arm stroking the muscles on my back, my shoulders, and the tightness inside me built up as it had never before done for a woman. I caressed her slowly at first and then with impatient, mounting excitement that would soon tell. The hairs on my neck began to tingle. Someone else was in the room, peering through the darkness, trying to see, and feverishly I thought the name over and over to myself. Faye, Faye, Faye. I imagined her face sharply and clearly so that nothing could come between us. And then, as she gripped me closer, I cried out and pushed her away. Charlie! Couldn't see Alice's face, but her gasp mirrored the shock. No, Alice, I can't. You don't understand. I jumped up from the couch and turned on the light. I almost expected to see him standing there, but of course not. We were alone. It was all in my mind. Alice was lying there, her blouse open where I had unbuttoned it, her face flushed, eyes wide in disbelief. I love you, the words choked out of me, but I can't do it. Something I can't explain, but if I hadn't stopped, I would hate myself for the rest of my life. Don't ask me to explain, or you'll hate me too. It has to do with Charlie. For some reason, he won't let me make love to you. She looked away and buttoned her blouse. It was different tonight, she said. You didn't get nausea or panic or anything like that. You wanted me. Yes, I wanted you, but I wasn't really making love to you. I was going to use you in a way, but I can't explain. I don't understand it myself. Let's just say I'm not ready yet. And I can't fake it or cheat or pretend it's all right when it's not. It's just another blind alley. I got up to go. Charlie, don't run away again. I'm through running. I've got work to do. Tell them I'll be back to the lab in a few days, as soon as I get control of myself. I left the apartment in a frenzy. Downstairs, in front of the building, I stood, not knowing which way to go. No matter which path I took, I got a shock that meant another mistake. Every path was blocked. But God! Everything I did, everywhere I turned, doors were closed to me. There was no place to enter, no street, no room, no woman. Finally, I stumbled down into the subway and took it down to 49th Street. Not many people, but there was a blonde with long hair who reminded me of Faye. Heading toward the crosstown bus, I passed a liquor store, and without thinking about it, I went in and bought a fifth of gin. While I waited for the bus, I opened the bottle in the bag, as I had seen bums do, and I took a long, deep drink. It burned all the way down, but it felt good. I took another, just a sip, and by the time the bus came, I was bathed in a powerful, tingling sensation. I didn't take any more. I didn't want to get drunk now. When I got to the apartment, I knocked at Faye's door. There was no answer. I opened the door and looked in. She hadn't come in yet, but all the lights were on in the place. She didn't give a damn about anything. Why couldn't I be that way? I went to my own place to wait. I undressed, took a shower, and put on a robe. I prayed that this wouldn't be one of those nights that someone came home with her. About 2:30 in the morning, I heard her coming up the steps. I took my bottle, climbed out into the fire escape, and slipped over to her window just as her front door opened. I hadn't intended to crouch there and watch. I was going to tap on the window, but as I raised my hand to make my presence known, I saw her kick her shoes off and twirl around happily. She went to the mirror and slowly, piece by piece, began to pull off her clothes in a private striptease. I took another drink, but I couldn't let her know I had been watching her. I went through my own apartment without turning on the lights. At first I thought of inviting her over to my place, but everything was too neat and orderly, too many straight lines to erase, and I knew it wouldn't work here. So I went out into the hallway. I knocked at her door, softly at first, and then louder. "Door's open," she shouted. She was in her underwear, lying on the floor, arms outstretched and legs up against the couch. She tilted her head back and looked at me upside down. "Charlie, darling, why are you standing on your head?" "Never mind," I said, pulling the bottle out of the paper bag. "The lines and boxes are too straight, and I thought you'd join me in erasing some of them." "Best stuff in the world for that," she said. "If you concentrate on the warm spot that starts in the pit of your stomach, all the lines begin to melt. That's what's happening. Wonderful! She jumped to her feet. Me too. I danced with too many squares tonight. Let's melt 'em all down. She picked up a glass and I filled it for her. As she drank, I slipped my arm around her and toyed with the skin of her bare back. Hey there, boy. Whoa, what's up? Me. I was waiting for you to come home. She backed away. Oh, wait a minute, Charlie boy. We've been through all this before. You know it doesn't do any good. I mean, you know I think a lot of you, and I'd drag you to bed in a minute if I thought there was a chance, but I don't want to get all worked up for nothing. It's not fair, Charlie. It'll be different tonight. I swear it. Before she could protest, I had her in my arms, kissing her, caressing her, overwhelming her with all the built-up excitement that was ready to tear me apart. I tried to unhook her brassiere, but I pulled too hard and the hook tore out. For God's sake, Charlie, my bra. Don't worry about your bra, I choked, helping her to take it off. I'll buy you a new one. I'm going to make up for the other times. I'm going to make love to you all night long. She pulled away from me. Charlie, I've never heard you talk like that. And stop looking at me as if you want to swallow me whole. She swept up a blouse from one of the chairs and held it up in front of her. Now you're making me feel undressed. I want to make love to you. Tonight, I can do it. I know it. I feel it. Don't turn me away, Faye. Here, she whispered. Have another drink. I took one and poured another for her. And while she drank it, I covered her shoulder and neck with kisses. She began to breathe heavily as my excitement communicated itself to her. God, Charlie, if you could get me started and disappoint me again, I don't know what I'll do. I'm human too, you know. I pulled her down beside me on the couch, on top of the pile of her clothing and underthings. Not here on the couch, Charlie, she said, struggling to her feet. Let's go to bed. Here, I insisted, pulling the blouse away from her. She looked down at me, set her glass on the floor, and stepped out of her underwear. She stood there in front of me, nude. I'll turn out the light, she whispered. No, I said, pulling her down and onto the couch again. I want to look at you. She kissed me deeply and held me tightly in her arms. Just don't disappoint me this time, Charlie. You'd better not. Her body moved slowly, reaching for me, and I knew that this time nothing would interfere. I knew what to do and how to do it. She gasped and sighed and called my name. For one moment, I had the cold feeling he was watching. Over the arm of the couch, I caught a glimpse of his face staring back at me through the dark beyond the window, where just a few minutes earlier, I had been crouching. A switch in perception, and I was out on the fire escape again, watching a man and woman inside making love on the couch. Then, with a violent effort of will, I was back on the couch with her, aware of her body and my own urgency and potency, and I saw the face against the window, hungrily watching. And I thought to myself, go ahead, you poor bastard, watch. I don't give a damn anymore. And his eyes went wide as he watched. June 29th. Before I go back to the lab, I'm going to finish the projects I've started since I left the convention. I phoned Lanzoff at the new Institute for Advanced Study about the possibility of utilizing the pair production nuclear photo effect for exploratory work in biophysics. At first, he thought I was a crackpot, but after I pointed out the flaws in his article in the New Institute Journal, he kept me on the phone for nearly an hour. He wants me to come to the Institute to discuss my ideas with his group. I might take him up on it after I've finished my work at the lab, if there's time. That's the problem, of course. I don't know how much time I have. A month? A year? The rest of my life? That depends on what I find out about the psychophysical side effects of the experiment. June 30th. I've stopped wandering the streets now that I have Faye. I've given her a key to my place. She kids me about my locking the door, and I kid her about the mess her place is in. She's warned me not to try to change her. Her husband divorced her 5 years ago because she couldn't be bothered about picking things up and taking care of her home. That's the way she is about most things that seem unimportant to her. She just can't or won't bother. The other day, I discovered a stack of parking tickets in a corner behind a chair. There must have been about 40 or 50 of them. When she came in with the beer, I asked her why she was collecting them. Those, she laughed, As soon as my ex-husband sends me my goddamn check, I've got to pay some of them. You have no idea how bad I feel about those tickets. I keep them behind the chair because otherwise I get an attack of guilt feelings every time I see them. But what is a girl supposed to do? Everywhere I go, they've got signs all over the place. Don't park here. Don't park there. I just can't be bothered stopping to read a sign every time I want to get out of my car. So I've promised I won't try to change her. She's exciting to be with, a great sense of humor, but most of all, she's a free and independent spirit. The only thing that may become wearing after a while is her craze for dancing. We've been out every night this week until 2 or 3 in the morning. I don't have that much energy left. It's not love, but she's important to me. I find myself listening for her footsteps down the hallway whenever she's been out. Charlie has stopped watching us. July 5th. I dedicated my first piano concerto to Faye. She was excited by the idea of having something dedicated to her, but I don't think she really liked it. Just goes to show that you can't have everything you want in one woman. One more argument for polygamy. The important thing is that Faye is bright and good-hearted. I learned today why she ran out of money so early this month. A week before she met me, she had befriended a girl she met at the Stardust Ballroom. When the girl told Faye she had no family in the city, was broke, and had no place to sleep, Faye invited her to move in. 2 days later, the girl found the $232 that is kept in a dresser drawer and disappeared with the money. Faye hadn't reported it to the police. As it turned out, she didn't even know the girl's last name. What good would it do to notify the police, she wanted to know. I mean, this poor bitch must have needed the money pretty badly to do it. I'm not going to ruin her life over a few $100. I'm not rich or anything, but I'm not going after her skin, if you know what I mean. I knew what she meant. I have never met anyone as open and trusting as Faye is. She's what I need most of all right now. I've been starved for simple human contact. July 8th. Not much time for work between the nightly club hopping and the morning hangovers. It was only with aspirin and something Faye concocted for me that I was able to finish my linguistic analysis of Urdu verb forms and send the paper to the International Linguistics Bulletin. I will send the linguistics back to India with their tape recorders because it undermines the critical substructure of their methodology. I can't help but admire the structural linguists who have carved out for themselves a linguistic discipline based on the deterioration of written communication. Another case of men devoting their lives to studying more and more about less and less, filling volumes and libraries with the subtle linguistic analysis of the grunt. Nothing wrong with that, but it should not be used as an excuse to destroy the stability of language. Alice called today to find out when I'm coming back to work at the lab. I told her I wanted to finish the reports I had started, and that's what I was hoping to get permission from the Wellberg Foundation for my own special study. She's right, though. I've got to take time to reconsider. Faye still wants to go out dancing all the time. Last night started out with us drinking and dancing at the White Horse Club, and from there to Benny's Hideaway, and then on to the Pink Slipper. And after that, I don't remember many of the places, but we danced until I was ready to drop. My tolerance for liquor must have increased because I was pretty far gone before Charlie made his appearance. I can only recall him doing a silly tap dance on the stage of the Alakazam Club. He got a great hand before the manager threw us out, and Faye said everyone thought I was a wonderful comedian and everyone liked my moron act. What the hell happened then? I know I strained my neck. I thought it was from all the dancing, but Faye says I fell off the goddamn couch. Algernon's behavior is becoming erratic again. Minnie seems to be afraid of him. July 9th. A terrible thing happened today. Algernon bit Faye. I had warned her against playing with him, but she always liked to feed him. Usually when she came into his room, he'd perk up and run to her. Today it was different. He was at the far side, curled up into a white puff. When she put her hand in through the top trap door, he cringed and forced himself back into the corner. She tried to coax him by opening the barrier to the maze, and before I could tell her to leave him alone, she made the mistake of trying to pick him up. He bit her thumb. Then he glared at both of us and scurried back into the maze. We found Minnie at the other end of the reward box. She was bleeding from a gash in her chest, but she was alive. As I reached in to take her out, Algernon came into the reward box and snapped at me. His teeth caught my sleeve, and he hung on until I shook him loose. He calmed down after that. I observed him for more than an hour afterward. He seems listless and confused, and though he still learns new problems without external rewards, his performance is peculiar. Instead of the careful, determined movements down the maze corridors, his actions are rushed and out of control. Time and time again, he turns into a corner too quickly and crashes into a barrier. There's a strange sense of urgency in his behavior. I hesitate to make a snap judgment. It could be many things, but now I've got to get him back to the lab. Whether or not I hear from the foundation about my special grant, I'm going to call Niemer in the morning.